All right, welcome back everybody to another Course in Miracles teaching session. Happy Easter, everybody. So today we're celebrating the resurrection, which is something the Course takes a little bit differently than traditional Christianity, all right? Because the Course, from this non-dual perspective, the body really is an illusion. So the body is an illusion, the world is an illusion. So what really is the resurrection? And the resurrection is really the remembrance of who we really are. It's not a new body that we are born into, but it is the remembrance of ourselves as spirit. That we always were. It's an immortal resurrection. It's an eternal one. It's one that always was there. It's not something new. But it is the remembrance, and that is the way the Course approaches that. And that's what Jesus accomplished really through the Easter lesson. And that's what he refers to the crucifixion in the Course, which is a resurrection, which is a lesson that we don't all have to repeat, but it was a lesson to teach only love, right? And that's what he did. He showed that despite even the most horrendous illusion that can seem to happen, which is a crucifixion or whatever, or there's many more that seem to happen within the world, but it's one example of that he could remain 100% peaceful, 100% loving, 100% forgiving through all of that because he knew he wasn't a body. The resurrection didn't really happen after Jesus's body seemed to die um, and then come back to life. The resurrection really happened earlier, where Jesus remembered who he was, and was a lesson where he taught, he showed his disciples and others that, see, look, we're not bodies. All of this can seem to happen, and you can still be loving, you can still be peaceful, and you can still be in the peace that surpasses all understanding, right? So our lesson today doesn't really delve into that too much, but I just figured I'd kind of touch on that a little bit today, because the Course does speak quite a bit about the resurrection, and there's some really beautiful teachings there. So with all of that said, we are continuing our journey through chapter 1, the online version. I'm learning little bits because I have different versions. I have a paper version, and there's different versions of the Course. They're put together in different orders a little bit. So like different sections of chapters will sometimes show up in different places, but I'm using the online version at acim.org. So in this one, we just finished the illusion of needs. So we're learning more and more that the body is an illusion, and our needs are distortions, because there's some truth behind them, because as long as we believe that we're bodies, yeah, we are filled with this deep and horrendous lack. It actually can grow as you spiritually progress and not necessarily improve, right? In the sense that you learn that these human needs and the pain that comes with identifying as being human is unbearable, especially as you begin to have more experiences of yourself as spirit, of yourself as resurrected, as yourself as oneness. When you get a few tastes of that, like the needs and the pleasures and the satisfactions of the world can not only start to lose their luster, they can start to be experienced actually as painful, because they're nothing compared to what we were meant for, which is the miracle, which is the remembrance of ourselves as one with God, and with all of our brothers, in this union of just infinite love flowing out of our hearts and into each other. So that's what we're going to kind of touch on a little bit today, which is the distortions of miracle impulses, meaning it's kind of a continuation of last week, right? Which is the illusion of needs. The idea of lacking was distorted. What we lack really is heaven. What we lack is this outflowing of love, the remembrance of what we are as spirit that is ever peaceful, ever giving, ever loving, created in the image of God, completely innocent, and can only bless in very powerful ways. That's the truth of what we are. And so when we forget that and we come down and we see ourselves as these guilty ego characters, what we think is that we need food. We think we need money. We think we need housing. We worry about all of these things. We think we need relationships. We need sex. We need whatever might show up. We need a drink, to calm the F down, right? Sometimes when you're stressed out. But those are all distortions of the real need, which is the need for God, which is the need for love. And it's not God like the sky daddy. This is a different thing. This is the oneness with the source of all being, the source of all infinite love, and bliss and peace, right? It's the words don't even do it justice. But that's what we're really craving. And so we can use that, if we can start to bring some awareness to our miracle impulses. These needs are actually a calling for a miracle, right? So the pain behind that, the pain behind conflict, needs, worries, problems, they're unbearable within this world. They're never ending. They're unsolvable, right? It's just there is so much misery within this world. But if we can use that as an opportunity, and when we invite the Holy Spirit in, one of the first things that he invites us to is a new perspective, which is to take these distortions, which are needs, which are wants, which are goals and things like that within the world. And we can then go to the pain behind them, go to that lack, feel the pain behind these wants and needs and goals and everything that you have. And if you can then see that as a call for love, what this is, this problem, this conflict, this war, maybe what this is actually a lack of love. There's something within my mind, the deep dreamer mind, is lacking love, at least in its perception. And so if I can bring love to that, if I can send unconditional loving energy to this problem, to this person, to this enemy, to this government or whatever, right? If we can start to see everything as a call for love, a call for the miracle, that is going to awaken us to our true nature, which is this giving, loving being. And it's weirdly, you think like, and the course goes over this so many times, what you think you want is that you need something. And even when you think you need heaven, you need God, you need the Holy Spirit, you need some divine intervention to fix your problem because you're lacking so badly. There's a trap in that, because what you're really asking for, you're wanting to get something. And we think that the love of God is something that we want to get, right? But you can't get the love of God. And the reason you can't get it is because you already have it. So if you're saying, hey, look, I want peace, I want love, I want to feel better, you know what I mean? The problem with that is in that you're making a declaration that you're not already there. So what the course invites us to, in so many different sections of it, is so how do we get that? How do we come to that understanding that we already have what we're looking for? That we already have this love, we already have this peace. The trick to doing this is that we need to give it first. Because as soon as you start to give it, when you give that forgiveness, you send that love to the problems, to the people, even when you feel like you don't have it, the truth is that you do have it, even if you feel like you don't. And so it's through giving it And when you start to feel it flowing out from you to problems, to situations, to the world, to your like to the people around you, then you realize, well, wait a second, I can feel this flowing from me to them. I must have it. And so that's where it comes to, it's a realization through giving that you already have what you've already been looking for. So it's a bit of a mind trick, because when you're in this state of lack, when you're in this state of needs, of problems, um, what we think, like I said, you want to get, right? You need to, or you want to protect. You're in this kind of getting mode. But if you can get out of that to the giving, and if with a little bit of faith, you need to call kind of on the Holy Spirit, a higher part of yourself, your inner teacher, to do this, because it makes zero sense to the ego. The last thing the ego wants to do is give when you're in this state, right? But that's the trick. And so that's how we remember that we already have what we're looking for, by giving. All right. So let's go to the text, and delve a little bit deeper here. All right. So distortions of miracle impulses. Your distorted perceptions produce a dense cover over miracle impulses, making it harder for them to reach your own awareness. So a miracle impulse is the call for love. It is the call for joining with others, remembering our unity, and this givingness that is part of our true nature. But covered over that is the ego distortions, right? That we already talked about, right? So there's needs there, there's special relationships, right? Where you give to some people, but not to others. And you have business relationships where there's kind of, it seems like a win-win, but you know what I mean? You're always coming out on top for yourself and they're coming out, you know what I mean? There's compromise that way. Um, these are kind of, you feel like that's cooperation, or spending time with your family, or you know what I mean, petting your dog and or whatever. These are they're little covers over what we really want, which is this deep and total givingness of our being, that can only happen on the spirit level. So we get confused, because what we think we want is these things, these special relationships. We want sex, we want love, help, loving family time, or whatever it might be, food, a good job. It's a cover for what we really want. So this confusion, right, which is all of these needs, wants, good relationships, bad ones, creates a confusion that covers over the deep part, which is this lack, which is this true wanting of giving love. That's what we really want behind everything. So the confusion of miracle impulses with physical impulses is a major perceptual distortion, right? So the wanting to eat, wanting to make money, wanting to have shelter, whatever it might be, right? Anger, get revenge, all of these things. They're a cover for what we really want, which is the miracle. Physical impulses, so all of them, the desire to breathe, even, are misdirected miracle impulses. All real pleasure, and I think here they're kind of vaguely referring to sexual things as well. But all real pleasure comes from doing God's will. And I would say the pleasure they're talking about here is a joy. It's different from the pleasure of anything you can get as a body, right? Of a great meal, of whatever it might be, a hot chocolate, great coffee. They're not talking about that, because you can't really experience that kind of pleasure without pain. You can only experience pleasure in the world if you're already in pain. You can't, like, otherwise there's nothing pleasurable. The more pain that you're in, the more pleasure you'll experience, because what pleasure in the world, and not what they're talking about right here, not the real pleasure, pleasure of the world is a brief reprieve from suffering. So That's what it is. And actually, the more suffering you're in, the more pleasurable something will be. Like, so that's why, like, to an alcoholic or whatever, like a drink is like, oh, okay, that feels good, right? Because you're in so much pain that the drink is inordinately good to some people, right? But it's the same thing with other things. It can be a goal that's socially acceptable. The goal of paying your taxes and getting that done, right? So that you don't need to worry about the tax man coming after you. That feels better getting that done when you're already in pain worrying about all those things, right? Because otherwise it's just kind of a blah non-issue. But it feels really good to get something done, which is considered a healthy impulse within the world. But the more driven you are to get things done, to accomplish goals and everything, that's a sign that you're in pain because you're not able to be in the present and just know that you already have what you're looking for. So that pleasure of things within the world is always 100% of the time associated with an equal amount of pain. So the more pain you're in, the more pleasure you'll have. The more pleasure you seek, the more pain you will experience. So the pleasure that they're talking about here is the joy. It's the knowing. It's the remembrance of what we really are, and not looking for the breadcrumbs or the peace in the battlefield, as it's referred to in other sections of the course, right? Like when you're in a war, like you're in a battlefield, right? And you like all of a sudden there's like a truce, and you get like a few days of like the battle stops. Like what some of us think is like, oh, well, that's a wonderful, like, oh, this is peace. There's peace on earth, right? There's no wars going on. But really, we all know that the wars are just going to happen again, right? It's just like to want just for that brief reprieve. It feels great when that's your whole world is in the world of war. But when you come up above the battlefield and remember that all of that is illusion, that we're all one. Like the joy and the peace and the um, oneness that comes from that is just not even comparable at all to hoping for a few years of no war, right? Okay. So all real pleasure comes from doing God's will. This is because not doing it is a denial of self. Denial of self results in illusions, while correction of the error brings release from it. Do not deceive yourself into believing that you can relate in peace to God or to your brothers with anything external. Okay. So I think an important thing here too to remember is that all real pleasure comes from doing God's will. So what they're talking about here is not doing God's will as like the sky daddy, right? God says, go to church on Sunday, you know what I mean? Pray your rosary. If you do those things, then you will get pleasure. It's not that, or follow the law, right? You know what I mean? Don't commit a criminal offense or whatever, right? And then you will be happy, right? It's not that. That's not the God's will we're talking about here. This is this God's will is accomplished 100% of the time. So there's no doing God's will and not doing God's will. That is an impossibility. It's a contradiction in terms. This God's will is something that we can't not do. But what we can do is think and perceive and distort and dream up a world where it's possible that God's will is not accomplished, but it's not, right? So how do we do God's will in this context, in the context of the course? It is to remember who we really are. And when we do, we'll realize that doing of God's will, which is the extension of love, which is forgiveness within the dream, but really it's in eternity, it's this ever extending of love that we really are. We were created by love. We are love and we extend love. And there's this infinite increase in love and creation. And that's our true nature. So that is what God's will really is. And within the dream, the best way that we can do that is forgiveness, right? Where we see through the guilt and the illusion, and we see the innocence, and we extend our love to these seeming others that are really ourselves. So the truth is that it seems like we can sometimes we forgive and sometimes we don't and everything. But actually, as you tune into this, you realize, whoa, there's a part of your mind that is always doing this. And it has never stopped. And it is never, you know what I mean? Like this illusion that we became these decrepit, lacking, vengeful ego creatures that dreamed up this hellscape of a world. It was just an illusion. But the truth is that we're always doing that. So how do we get there? We practice, but the practice is not really a doing. It feels like that at first, but as you get into it more and more, you realize, whoa, this is actually always happening. This is actually happening outside of time. So as you tune into that extension of love within you, eventually it clicks that, oh my God, this is the truth of what I am. This isn't something I do or not do. This is who I am. And everything else that seemed to happen wasn't really true. And so, and that's the awakening process. So that pleasure that comes from doing God's will is already happening. You just need to tune into it. And when you tune into it, you'll remember the guilt is undone. Nothing other than that really ever happened. Okay. Child of God, you were created to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy. Do not forget this. The love of God for a little while must still be expressed through one body to another, because vision is still so dim. You can use your body best to help you enlarge your perception so you can achieve a real vision, of which the physical eye is incapable. Learning to do this is the body's only true usefulness. So again, referring here to heaven, like our true nature is that we are these loving beings, loving, all-powerful, creative beings. So as much as we are a consciousness that was created by God as love that extends love, we also create other consciousnesses, kind of, um, other these other beings. We co-create with God others, right? So but not as we perceive them here in the world, but the truth, the light that is in me is creating the light within you. And your light is creating the light within me, I think. Right? And it kind of extends outward. Um, and so we are like God, pretty much, right? We are God, right? But as long as your understanding is that I'm not talking about Patrick. Um, okay. So when they're saying that the love of God, this extension needs to take place within bodies, they're not saying that you're going to have these perfect loving relationships with everybody around you. Your ego won't. You can, but it won't be Patrick. Patrick will still have conflict, will still have people that um, that disappoint him or that he disappoints or whatever. And those things can happen within the world. There can even be a war that breaks out. But so the one that is remembering this seems to happen within a body. We're not looking to create holy egos here. We're not looking for, you know what I mean, somebody you put on a tunic and you just love everybody around you, because you're not really that one in the tunic, right? You're the one who's dreaming that one up. So what this brings up is that, but we're still stuck in these bodies. We still seem to be stuck in a world of bodies. So how do we move from this into the remembrance of what we really are in heaven? And we do that through changing the purpose that we see everything for, right? So what the ego sees when he looks around me, I see a light. That's for creating light so I can move around my house at night, right? Getting, like, that's my light. I need it to work so that I can see and I can walk around my house, right? That's how the ego thinks. Like, what can I get out of things? That's my husband that I love and he's my partner and we help each other out, you know what I mean? We barely scrape by, but thank God I have him around, you know what I mean? We support each other, whatever. But again, there's getting, and it can seem to be loving, but there's still a gettingness from the ego. And so that relationship will go well when everybody meets everybody's expectations. And as soon as they stop and they start not fulfilling that role that the ego wants them to play, then it turns to chaos or vengeance sometimes. Fear, vengeance, sadness, right? Abandonment. Um, and so how do we move from this world of bodies back to remembering what we really are? And that is forgiveness. That's why this course is all about forgiveness, because once you can see that everything, absolutely everything, is not here to get anything out of it, your ego will just continue to try to get that, and you just forget that. But if you can see everything, including your body, other people's bodies, the world, uh, the chickens that are outside, and remember that those chickens aren't there really to get you eggs. It can seem that way to the ego, but really those chickens are there for forgiveness. Everything, right? And it seems random to just talk about chickens, but you know what I mean? But you'll be disappointed with those chickens. You'll get angry at those chickens if they stop laying eggs. You know what I mean? You're like, you're supposed to make me eggs. But if you remember, oh, they're here to be forgiven. And maybe even if the ego needs to get rid of those chickens or kill them because they're not making eggs anymore, that also needs to be forgiven. Your ego then needs to be forgiven for killing those chickens, right? So what I'm saying is there's some guilt. There's always some guilt. There's something within everything. And if you can change the purpose of absolutely everything to be, all of it is here to be forgiven. And if you can just turn your mind to extending love to everything, even your ego as it's being an ego, getting and doing and all of those things, um, just give that love to the Patrick ego that is not this holy person, right? Um, that is your role. That's what reawakens what we really are. And that's what the miracle is of remembering the light behind everyone and extending that love to them. So learning to do this is the body's only usefulness. And that's true not just of the body, but also of the world. The body's not here to serve you. It's not here to, you know what I mean, give you pleasure, to help you survive, or to whatever. It can seem that way, but that will make you miserable. What's the only purpose that you can have behind everything that will give you joy and peace and love in every moment and in every possible situation? It's when you can see them, everything, as for forgiveness, for the extension of love. That will make you immensely happy, and you will be out of here in no time. Okay. So fantasy is a distorted form of vision. Fantasies of any kind are distortions because they always involve twisting perception into unreality. Actions that stem from distortions are literally the reactions of those who know not what they do. Fantasy is an attempt to control reality according to false needs. Twist reality in any way, and you are perceiving destructively. Fantasies are a means of making false associations and attempting to obtain pleasure from them. But although you can perceive false associations, you can never make them real except to yourself. You believe in what you make. If you offer miracles, you will be equally strong in your belief in them. The strength of your conviction will then sustain the belief of the miracle receiver. Fantasies become totally unnecessary as the wholly satisfying nature of reality becomes apparent to both giver and receiver. Reality is lost through usurpation, which produces tyranny. As long as a single slave remains to walk the earth, your release is not complete. Complete restoration of the sonship is the only goal of the miracle mind. Okay, so there's a lot in that paragraph. So fantasy here is any kind of goal, any kind of ego goal. And often there's pleasure, right, that comes from that, right? So there's pleasure in food, right? And something that you really like to eat, you know what I mean? And you think that that is going to make you happy. They're all just kind of distortions. There's pleasure in like there's sexual fantasies, right? Where you um kind of imagine cannibalizing somebody. I've it kind of really is that. So there's some quality in somebody else that you find sexually attractive, and then you think that you get that by having them sexually, right? So that is a form of getting, right? And it's not really any better or any worse than trying to get from food or whatever, right? I mean, in this world, there's orders of illusions, right? So there's some things that are horrible and criminal even, and there's some things that are socially acceptable. Um, but also, if you're a businessman, right, you obtain pleasure by employing people who then you make a profit off of, and yeah, maybe that person also benefits, but you benefit as well, right? And there's a pleasure that comes by accumulating wealth from the labor of others, but it's not even just the labor of others. It can be off any capital asset, off of land, farming. You obtain pleasure by having a goal. You have this land and you can make money off it, or you can make food. But anyway, what it is ego getting. Um, uh, there's trying to obtain something from giving. So it's not a giving perspective. Um, it is a getting. And actually, even giving to charity. When you're in an ego, you can't help but get. So this isn't about judging that and trying to become a holy ego that gives alms to the poor or whatever, you know what I mean? Like that's not really what the goal is here. Um, you can do those things, and actually it depends on is where it's coming from. But even in giving, right? If you're giving from the the ego's point of view, you're doing it to either get rewards in heaven, or you're doing it to be a good person, right? So to relieve your guilt, right? Because you feel guilty about other things. You think, oh, if I give enough, then I'll feel better. I'll have some good karma, right, coming for me. But even there, you're trying to get good karma, right? So there's a lot of giving in the world that isn't that is really a form of getting. Um, so so there's no judgment on what people do here. As long as you're in ego, you're always getting. And you can't judge somebody from the outside of whether they're giving or getting based on how much money they give or how much money they get, or you know what I mean? That in the world of egos, all there is getting. Um, so these are the distortions of people who literally know not what they do. Because as long as you believe that you're a human being that lives on planet Earth, then you're already distorted, and you can't escape on that level. Um, okay. So twist reality being the truth of what we are, um, as this giving, loving, untouchable, imperturbable spirit that is one with God and with everything. Um, so as soon as you leave that reality, you're already gone, right? You know what I mean? So it's like, so on that sense, there's no difference. There's no order of illusion between a serial killer, and that's the big one that I pull up all the time, and the holy person who is giving to the poor to try to become a good person, right? They're all equal. They're all illusion. Um, so as soon as you leave the truth of what we are, it's all getting, it's all illusion. Um, okay, so these false associations, believing that getting something is going to make you happy, will can never make them real except to yourself. You'll get that brief pleasure, but it will never work. You will never get that joy, fill that void that you really want, right? So you can have horrible criminal fantasies, and you can have perfectly socially acceptable fantasy of getting a job and just paying your bills and being a good person. And none of those will make you happy. Um, Okay. So, but you can make them real to yourself. So you can see these things can seem super real, and you can be obsessed about them, and uh And so we believe in what we make. So the more that we get sucked into these ego goals, these ego distortions, our fears, our problems, they will feel and seem very real. You know, you have police knocking on your door, locking you up, you know what I mean? Prosecuting you, all of this stuff. And that seems like a very real thing because our mind is very powerful. We believe in what we make. We have a mind that's just as creative as God. But if we offer miracles, and so here's with the focus, right? The miracle is switching from fear to love, switching from ego to Holy Spirit, switching from getting to giving. And so that is what the miracle is. So when we go to the pain behind any goal, behind any pleasure, behind any situation or relationship within the world, go inside, feel that getting, sit with that, feel the pain behind it, and realize, oh, this is not the pleasure that I thought. This is not the goal. Maybe this is not the healthy drive that I thought I had to be a good person or whatever. There's pain here. And when you can see that clearly and without flinching and with the Holy Spirit, ask your mind to be changed. Call for the miracle. See that this is a lack of love. And what we need, this situation, this relationship, this conflict, all it is a call for love. And when that awakens and you feel that call for love, it will have a dramatic change. That's how miracles can happen within the world, but they happen immediately because you switch from that pain to joy, to from fear to love. The strength of your conviction will then sustain the belief of the miracle receiver. So it will also, this is a giving to others, right? And they will be able to receive that if when you believe and you have that strength of conviction. Okay. And so that giving is an essential part of this. This is the atonement, right? So it's not just our little miracles for our life and our little problems. We are the light of the world, right? Our mission is to save the entire world. And so if you are seeing any suffering on the outside, you're seeing a problem, you're seeing a war, there is a call within your own mind to love, for healing. So you will not be fully awake until you see everyone, no matter how evil they seem, if you do not see the light in everyone and see them as equally holy as you and Jesus and everyone, then you're not awake yet. And so your mission eventually, you know what I mean, as you begin to awaken this, you will see everything as a call for love. And and that will heal everyone and everything around you. So as long as a single slave, so if you see somebody else, oh, they're not on a spiritual path, they're still stuck in their sinful ways or whatever, right? Then it's your mind that needs to be fixed, right? Because you're seeing that. Complete restoration of the sonship, not just yours, this not just your awakening, but the awakening of Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland and whatever arch nemesis you might seem to have. Might be, that is the only goal of the miracle minded. Because, and it's actually not that you need to go and convert Justin Trudeau or whatever. It's actually that your mind is the one dreaming up the whole thing. So you have the power immediately to see through the illusion and see who they really are. And you can do that like that. Okay. So continuing on, this is a course in mind training, right? So a miracle isn't really a change in anything. It is a remembrance of what was always there, right? So there was no evil World Economic Forum, people who are bent on destroying the world and enslaving everybody, right? That was just an illusion within your mind. So what do we need to do? This is a course in mind training. We need to remember. So all learning involves attention and study at some level. Some of the later parts of the course rest too heavily on these earlier sections not to require their careful study. You will also need them for preparation. Without this, you may become much too fearful of what is to come to make constructive use of it. However, as you study these earlier sections, you will begin to see some of the implications that will be amplified later on. A solid foundation is necessary because of the confusion between fear and awe to which I have already referred, and which is often made. I have said that awe is inappropriate in connection with the sons of God, because you should not experience awe in the presence of your equals. However, it was also emphasized that awe is proper in the presence of your Creator. I have been careful to clarify my role in the atonement without either over or understating it. I am also trying to do the same with yours. I have stressed that awe is not an appropriate reaction to me. So this is Jesus, the person um, dictating the course, right? Um, yeah, I have stressed that awe is not an appropriate reaction to me because of our inherent equality. Some of the later steps in this course, however, involve a more direct approach to God himself. It would be unwise to start on these steps without careful preparation, or awe will be confused with fear, and the experience will be more traumatic than beatific. Healing is of God in the end. The means are being carefully explained to you. Revelation may occasionally reveal the end to you, but to reach it, the means are needed. So here, Jesus, right, the author of the course, is referring kind of to what I said, right? The awakening process can't involve the idea that there's some enlightened beings and there's some that aren't, right? If you're seeing that, your mind is still sick. You're still in the ego. You're still seeing orders of difficulty. You're seeing orders of, um, you're seeing differences, right? On the level of spirit, there are no differences. And so if you are seeing Jesus as more holy than a serial killer, right? Or whatever it might be, a politician, a warmonger, um, then that's what needs to be healed. Because the goal is to see the light, see and experience the light in everyone equally. And the belief, and this is an ego belief, that there's some holy people, even if you think it's not you, you think there's some holy people who are spiritually advanced, and there's some people who aren't spiritually advanced, um, then that is a block. That is a block to the experience of oneness. And so that's what he's putting out here. So don't see me as the one and only Son of God, and you guys are all just you know, uh, the servants, you know what I mean, on the outside. That's not that's the way Christianity saw Jesus, right? He was the Son of God and everybody else isn't, right? But he told us we're one with him. When you see whatever you see in the least of your brothers, you see me, right? Um, um, so that equality is essential. So if you're seeing or you're worshiping, you know what I mean, some individual, then you're going to get lost. But it doesn't mean you don't follow that person, right? Because they're leading you there. Or he said the best approach is to see, if you're going to see a guru or somebody else or whatever, like whether it's Jesus or this course, you just see that as somebody who's just slightly ahead of you, right? And we're all going to the same place. And really, and the truth is that we're all equal and we're just as advanced as Jesus is. And the fact that we think we're not is the problem. But the question is of who, right? So we're not saying Patrick, this Patrick person, right, within the world is like Jesus. No, it's not that at all. So it's the undoing of believing that I'm this Patrick and remembering what we are as spirit. That's when we can see this. And that's when we'll know it. But then as well, a huge thing too, that he's referring to here is that the importance of the mind training, because you do need to be able to let go of these deep ego beliefs and habits, right? That there's these differences between people and these distortions and miracle impulses, right? That we need food, we need to eat, we need money, all these things, right? So then you have a compromise between that and the course, and that I'm running into. So uh, so the mind training is essential, right, to remember, because what happens when you have these experiences of revelation, when you start to get closer to the letting go of your ego, um, the ego will experience it as loss, as of losing people. You might experience people dying off. You see all of the things that you valued as an ego start to fall apart and go to go to shit, right? And so that can be very disturbing to the ego. And also, too, when you start to awaken to your power as the dreamer of the dream, that can be extremely frightening to the ego. And the reason is that we're so invested, we feel so guilty, we feel so wretched from this separation from God, that we created this world to hide away so that I could be poor little Patrick, you know what I mean? That had his medical license taken away, and the government, and then the bank is put him into bankruptcy, and maybe they're going to take my house away. So there's this, and what that is I'm just poor little me. You know what I mean? I didn't make up all this big bad evil world. You know what I mean? I'm just poor little Patrick. Look how weak and powerless I am, right? Like my whole life is like this whole little thing, and then so when you start to like, oh, you have a miracle, and then those things get taken away, and you realize, oh my God, I have the ability to heal these things. I have the ability to see past it, to remember what we are. That can be very scary because all of a sudden the defenses that we use to be like to assuage our guilt or to minimize our guilt but not undo it, um, get rocked, and then the ego will be like, oh shit, oh my God. Then you start to feel guilty. You realize, oh my God, you might feel guilty for the war in the Middle East, or the the whatever true crime shows that you watch, and you realize that, oh my God, I'm the one dreaming up all of these horrible things. I'm the mind behind all of it. That can be very scary, right? Because we were like, no, I'm a decent law-abiding citizen, right? I'm not the mind that's also behind Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm not that. You know what I mean? I'm okay, I got my sins, but I'm not that bad, right? But no, we're the one mind behind all of it. And so that can be very scary. And so that's why I'm probably scaring people right now. But that's why the course starts out slowly. So as you practice these, you then can, when that happens, that realization of oneness happens, you realize that the guilt really is unreal. And so you're not worried about being the mind behind Jeffrey Dahmer, because you see the innocence behind all of it. And so while it says here you can have these experiences of peace and oneness and revelation, right, of remembering that you're one with God and having that experience, we get they're kind of like we pierce the veil, right? And in a meditation, we have this wonderful experience. But how do we get up there to stay there? The problem is we have these weights of guilt, of unforgiveness, of grievances within the world that hold us down. So we can jump up. We can't stay there because we still have these weights. And so that's why we need the mind training to forgive all those people from our childhood, and maybe even past lives or whatever, but it doesn't really matter. They're all guilt that's presently within the mind. And so the mind training, the forgiveness practice, they undo these little weights. And then all of a sudden we're floating a little bit higher. We're more easily able to forgive, more easily able to float higher and closer to the truth, and remember that we're not these ego characters. And so that's the work of the course. The truth is you can right now cut through all of it, but you can't stay there until you've undone the beliefs that keep you trapped. Okay. So that's it for that section. That's it for chapter 1 before we move on to the separation and atonement. Okay. So I'll open it up now if anybody has any questions or comments or anything. Not that you need to. All right. And then we'll move on to our um, uh, meditation here. So this is lesson 127, which is there is no love but God's, right? And so this is kind of a continuation of our lesson here, right? Which is the distortion of miracle impulses of thinking that we have love. We have love for our family, we have love for our country, we have love for food, certain foods that we like or whatever, our pets. And we think that there's these different loves. There's, sacrificial love, and then there's erotic love, and there's whatnot, family love. But there's only really one. And so when we can see that this forgiveness love, this unconditional love, when we tune into that and we see that as our only purpose, that is what will bring us the peace. So, all right, he's going to go over all this in meditation. So let's get started.
Welcome to this holy instant now. An instant to stop and remember. Remember who and what you truly are, beyond the matrix of fear, lack, and limitation. All that seems to limit you in this world is only an illusion that demands your continued belief and attention in order to have any power over you. Now is your opportunity to let go of whatever stands in the way of your complete awareness of your true and original self. Before we begin today's practice, make your intention clear in your mind. What are you letting go of that has been in the way of your freedom and fulfillment? I'm letting go of fear, doubt, unforgiveness, judgment. What are you embracing that is in alignment with your desire to awaken to your true self? I am embracing love, trust, forgiveness, innocence. Take a moment to write your intention in the comments below, now or after your practice. Share them to solidify your intention in your own consciousness and in the world. And now, sit back with your spine upright. Get comfortable and take a deep, slow breath. And as you exhale, release both past and future. Release both memory and imagination, and become fully present in the now. And let's begin. Our purpose in today's practice is to release the beliefs that limit love and open the mind to God, so that God can teach and reveal to us love's true meaning. Today we work with this principle of spiritual awakening. There is no love but God's. And as you settle into this moment, bring to mind the idea that there is no love but God's. Let yourself feel the meaning of this statement in your body, in your heart, you are surrounded by an infinite field of love, and that this love is the very fabric of existence. Let your breath slow and deepen as you repeat to yourself today's idea and allow its meaning to blossom in your awareness. There is no love but God's. In the dream matrix of separation, it appears that different kinds of love are possible. Perhaps you think there is a kind of love for this and a kind of love for that, a way of loving one and another way of loving still another. Love is one. It has no separate parts and no degrees, no kinds nor levels, no divergences and no distinctions. It is like itself, unchanged throughout. It never alters with a person or a circumstance. Love is the heart of God and also of His creation. Love's meaning is obscure to anyone who thinks that love can change. He does not see that changing love must be impossible, and thus he thinks that he can love at times and hate at other times. He also thinks that love can be bestowed on one and yet remain itself, although it is withheld from others. To believe these things of love is not to understand it. If it could make such distinctions, it would have to judge between the righteous and the sinner and perceive the oneness of God in separate parts. Yet love cannot judge. As it is one itself, it looks on all things as one. Its meaning lies in oneness, and it must elude the mind that thinks of it as partial or in part. There is no love but God's, and all of love is God's. There is no principle which rules where love is not, because love is a law without an opposite. Its wholeness is the power holding everything as one, the link between the Creator and the creation, which holds them both forever as the same. And most importantly, realize this: there is no difference in what you are and what love is. Love's meaning is your own and shared by God Himself. For what you are is what God is. There is no love but God's, and what God is everything there is. Today we practice making free our mind of all the laws you think you must obey, of all the limits under which you live, and all the changes which you think are part of human destiny. Today we take the largest single step in your advance towards your awakening. If you but achieve the faintest glimmering of what love truly means today, you have advanced in distance without measure, and in time beyond the count of years, to your complete liberation and awakening. So take a deep breath now, and as you exhale slowly, leave behind every law in which you now believe. Open your mind and rest. The world that seems to hold you prisoner can be escaped by anyone who does not hold it dear. And so, withdraw now all value that you have placed upon the world's meager offerings and senseless gifts, and let the gift of God replace them all. As you breathe in, imagine that you are inhaling and drawing in this love, allowing it to fill your entire being. And as you exhale, let go of any tension or resistance in your body or mind. As you continue to breathe in this way, allow yourself to be fully present in this moment, surrounded by the love of the divine. And here, ask for God to reveal the truth about love and about your true self to you. Ask for revelation and listen in stillness and in silence for the impartation that will come to meet you from within. And now, let us go into the silence. prepare for the rest of your day, place this idea one more time in your mind. There is no love but God's. And over the next few moments, allow your mind to relate this idea to your daily needs, your seeming problems, the decisions that confront you, and all of your concerns. Allow your mind to show you how you would experience the moments of your day differently if you were aware of this principle moment by moment. And now, as you approach the completion of this practice period, take a deep, slow, and full breath in, breathing all the way to the top, and hold it as you behold the intention now to integrate the fruits of this practice period into your thought system. And as you exhale slowly now, relax and release and allow the integration to take place. And remember to bring this feeling and this idea with you into the rest of your day. Throughout the day, remember that everyone you see or think of is included in this love, because we cannot leave a part of ourselves outside our love if we would know our true self. So at least 3 to 4 times an hour, think of someone in your life who makes this journey with you and who came to learn what you must learn. And as they come to mind, give them this message from your true self. I bless you, brother, with the love of God which I would share with you. For I would learn the joyous lesson that there is no love but God's, and yours, and mine, and everyone's. And as we close this practice period, take a moment now to thank yourself for taking the time to connect with truth and to remember and activate the state of peace and happiness within yourself. And remember to carry this sense of gratitude and inner peace with you as you go about your day, doing what needs to be done, but knowing that you are always connected to the love and joy of God. If you enjoyed and please like the video.
All right.
About your experience
So
below.
let's stop this here.
Share your emotions, what you are releasing, and what you are.
All right. So, hmm. So yeah, powerful lesson a little bit that can be really helpful in um, the correction, right, of those distorted miracle impulses, right? So all of our needs, all of our wants, all of our conflicts, or even the things that we think we like, our pleasures, right, our joys within the world, the beauty or whatever you seem to find, you can know behind it. And it's not a denial of those things, but it's if you can see behind it, everything is a call for love. And um, that can awaken you pretty quickly, especially when you start to do it for everything and everyone equally. Um, and you experience the love of God as an outgoing. It's not something you get, it's something you give. And because the getting comes through the giving. And it can be very powerful. And you become grateful for when everything goes wrong, right? Because everything goes wrong, you know what I mean? When somebody disappoints you, when somebody hurts you, seems to hurt you, if you see it as a call for love, the pain is immediately gone. You're immediately grateful for it because it awakens and strengthens this outflowing of love that comes through you. And so, yeah, when you can see everything as a call for love, when you see only the love of God is the only thing there is, right? There's no love but God's. Um, unconditional love. Um, then, yeah, it's the greatest antidote to all of our pain. All right. So I'll just open it up if anybody has any questions, comments, or um, experiences on the record. If not, I'll end the recording here. All right. All right. Have a good week, everybody.